Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Elin Jensen. I'm the department chair for Civil and Architectural Engineering here at Lawrence Tech. And it's my pleasure to invite you back to our first in-person event here associated with our Construction Safety Research Center. And we welcome back the Coffee with My OSHA program, and we are delighted to have you all here. So a lot of things have happened here at Lawrence Tech, even though that it has been a full-blown pandemic. One major piece of news that I would like to share with you is the establishment of the Construction Safety Research Center, and it has been spearheaded and led by Dr. Ahmed Al-Bayati, and he is our host today for, at least from the Lawrence Tech side of the house. So I am a civil engineer, and my area is materials and structures. And just as recently as Friday, I was sitting with a group of students that were working on the concrete canoe. And as part of my safety protocol and training with the students, I go over all the musts and must-dos when you are working with cementitious materials like the fly ash and the different types of cements. So it is part of our DNA as an educational institution to make sure that our students are educated and understand the protocols that they have to follow, just as important as it is to you and your organizations. So therefore, I know that you will have a lot of questions to my OSHA representative today, and I wish you a great program, and once again, welcome to Lawrence Tech. With that, Dr. Al-Bayati.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to, again, and this is, I think, the first in-person event, so I'm very excited. Thank you so much for coming. Please stay safe. Thank you for Michigan OSHA to help us with this event today and be here. Before we start, I just want to go over quickly over the Construction Safety Research Center. I'm just going to take 3-4 minutes from your time. So basically, we started the Construction Safety Research Center here in LTU. In our department, Civil and Architectural Engineering Department. And the Construction Safety Research Center, basically, we recognize that the industry struggles with safety performance. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals every year killed or severely injured in the construction workplaces. The Construction Safety Research Center has a process to help industry leaders to contribute to the industry so they can transfer their knowledge and experience to save lives and improve the overall industry performance. This is the main idea of the center, is to help, is to work with industry partners. It has been established to aid the national effort, again, to reduce the high rates of fatal and non-fatal injuries within the industry. And we started with 6 members, the founding members of the center, as you guys see here. And again, this center is a membership-driven collaboration with the industry, because we believe we here in academia, we read literature, a lot of literature, maybe we do a lot of publications, but we still need feedback. We need people to guide us from the industry, to tell us what's going on, what is very much needed today to be done. So basically, there's a challenge, and we are working with our industry partners to propose effective solutions that could help the industry by transfer them into practice. This is the main idea of the center, and let me walk you through. If you have time today, tomorrow, next week, please go to the center website. You will see a lot more about our founding members, about why the center there, why we established this center, and there's some resources there. You can find few good information that you may use. And again, if you think there is any resources that we can have it here for the industry, please shoot me an email. We will be more than happy to have the information there and also include your contribution within this section of whatever resources you think it's important to our industry. Current project, what we are working right now within the center, we are currently, based on, again, the recommendation of our founding members, we are working on studying the factors that contribute to PPE non-compliance among construction workers, why they don't use it. So basically, we did a benchmark of the contributing factors. We found 16 factors that contribute to non-using PPE by construction workers. Then right now we have a survey to send it out to the industry. We are working with the industry to find their opinion, feedback, to see if these are really contributing, these 16 factors are really contributing to the challenge, to this issue. If not, we ask them open-ended question to tell them, okay, tell us, based on your experience, what are the other factors that are not within these 16 factors. Plus, we ask them to rank them, like tell us which one is more important than the others, because we need to focus on the most important or more important factors. So this is what we are currently working on. It's all funded by our members, and by their help also we are collecting the survey. We're going to have a focus group study in May to validate the survey and the literature review. Then by the end of September, we will have a training program based on the findings to help safety managers, coordinators like you to overcome the issue that some workers, unfortunately, they don't have their PPE on. And this is one of the contributing factors to fatal and non-fatal injuries. This is through the center. Also through Michigan OSHA, we have this. It's funded. Thank you to Michigan OSHA. We have a training funded program for construction firms and public services department. Is about temporary traffic controls. It's a free 2 hours program or training. And this training could be in person in your job site, or you can bring your staff to here to LTU, or we can do it via Zoom as well. It's all in person, nothing recorded. So please, if anyone interested in this training, please let me know, shoot me an email, and we're gonna arrange to come to your site, or you come to us here in LTU, or we're gonna do it via Zoom if there's need. Also through OSHA, we have a funded research project to create 360 videos. Okay, sorry. To create 360 videos for roofers. For roofers, so the main idea is to create some kind of training that is, people will look at videos 360 so they can look around and see the environment, the unsafe conditions within roofing industry, and we're gonna have someone talk to them about what's going on. And this project is totally funded by OSHA, and it will be ready, it will be available by August, I hope. And I think there's one more slide. For some reason it doesn't show up, so let me do something real quick here. And we do a lot of publication here. We do a lot of publications. One of them is in your folder about construction safety culture. And this is another publication about general duty clause and how to be sure the general duty clause is valid and when to contest it or when to accept it based on few criteria that we mentioned here in this article based on, again, court cases review. So we have few resources available for you. Please go to the resources section under the website, the Construction Safety Research Center website. And if you have any questions, we are here to help. Please let us know if you have any questions about construction safety. This is what we love to do. This is what we are trying to help with. Thank you so much. And I think it's time for Eric right now from Michigan OSHA. Let me take this out. And there you go. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm Eric Allen, Health and Safety Manager with Michigan OSHA. I want to thank Lawrence Tech University for hosting the Coffee with My OSHA event here, and especially Dr. Al-Bayati, who was very instrumental in putting this whole thing together, and then also with his work with the center here as well. You may have noticed that they're doing some of their work through a grant with federal OSHA, and those grants are available on many levels, so if you're interested in that, you may want to look into that to see if you can apply to them and potentially receive some money for either educational purposes or for work purposes. So this is I think this is the third one of this year, and there's more to be announced. So if you know of anyone that would like to host a Coffee with MyOSHA, please get a hold of myself or some of the MyOSHA staff here as well, and we can try to put something together to figure out a way that we can put on another one, because that's part of what we're trying to do. Spread the message out there to the industry to keep workers safe. So what's our mission? Help protect the health and safety of Michigan workers, and our motto, educate before we regulate. So with that, we have our Consultation, Education, and Training Division, and they're always available. And I think that's a really underutilized resource with MyOSHA, and please feel free to contact them. They will do mock inspections, they'll do audits, they do training, they do lots of things. And that is a very important mission that we have with Michigan OSHA, and they are the non-enforcement side. Oh, I apologize, I'm going to back up just a bit. The first half of this is going to be more of a MyOSHA agency basis, and then the second half is going to be more geared towards construction. And then lastly, it'll be questions and answers. Okay, so where do we stand in terms of federal and state OSHA programs? Oh, I should probably stay over here. So, as you can see, we're in the orange category. There we go. So those are state programs. The greenish are the federal programs, and then there's some that are yellow. The big difference here is the green sections are federal, but they do not cover public sector. So state workers, municipality workers, they do not have coverage. So Illinois, for example, just from a proximity standpoint, they're federal, but they also have a public sector portion of OSHA as well. Okay, so we are one of the state programs, one of 28. We are authorized by federal OSHA, and we also have to be at least as effective as. And you'll hear that term frequently when it comes to OSHA regulations, things of that nature. But even the state, our program has to be at least as effective as federal OSHA as well. And we do get audits on that. We actually just concluded one 2 or 3 weeks ago. We are funded roughly about 50-50 through the grant program with federal OSHA. So some of our state plan benefits, definitely some flexibility, broader consultation strategy, state interaction and accountability. Federal OSHA doesn't typically do things like this Coffee with MyOSHA. Covers an additional 500,000 Michigan public sector workers that would not be covered, and it also covers 235 Michigan businesses and Michigan workers as well. Federal OSHA update. So Doug Parker is now the Assistant Secretary of Labor. If you just Google OSHA, you can see a picture of him. And then Jim Frederick also is now the Deputy Assistant Secretary, and that's an appointed position. Amanda Edens is the Deputy Assistant, that's a career position. And so my big boss, Bart, currently reports to Bill Donovan, who's out of the region. So each state reports to a region, and then the regions report to national. Strategic plan. The strategic plan is goals that we set to put on track what are we going to do moving into the future. This started in 1999, and our current goals for this segment of 2019 through 2023: reduce exposures, injuries, illnesses, and fatalities, promote benefits of positive safety culture, strengthen public confidence in MyOSHA. So the way the strategic plans work is we have 4 different groups. There's a general industry-based group of management, a general industry-based group of employee represented people, typically by union leaders, and then the same for the construction side, a management group, and then the employee group. There's actually a couple people in this room that were on the construction one. So we look forward to that, and that's going to be starting again as we're getting closer to 2023, because we try to keep that moving forward. So I'm going to go briefly through some of the goals, and like I said, this is going to be more of an agency-based section. High hazard industries. So these are industries that have been highlighted in general industry that are did not meet or that are higher than their average when it comes to BLS data. So with this, the goal currently is we met the industry and illness reduction goals in these 5, but we did not meet the goals in here. So as you can see, there's a rise in COVID-19, and that's a predominant factor involved there. There's other factors as well, though. Goal 1.2, reduce general industries, and we're going to get to this later. The goal is not met due to drastic increase in COVID-19 fatalities. So for the construction side is goal 1.3 and 1.4. We did achieve that. Anyone who follows the construction numbers, especially for your DART rate, that number seems to fluctuate a decent amount as well. So that decrease in 12% is not a MIOSHA stat that we did so great on this. That is because of everyone in this room collectively working together. And then for 1.4, to decrease the construction fatality rate, we achieved a 5% decrease, but we want that number to be 0. 2.1, evaluate safety and health programs during 100% of the comprehensive consultative visits. Goals were met there. Increase participation in MTI. Quick raise of hands. Anyone here been to an MTI class? Okay, great. It's a great resource. I'll have a slide on that a little bit later. We're trying to increase participants in MTI and get that knowledge out to a much larger population. There's both a general industry and a construction route to take. 2.3, increase participation in cooperative events, MVPP, alliances, partnerships, scanning the room. I see a couple people that have been involved in partnerships. We really value those, and we like to do more of them. What we have seen is that the partnerships have a injury rate that is less than the average in Michigan and national. Unfortunately, we did not meet our goal for MSHARP renewals, CET awards, and MCP. The last goal on this slide is to connect MIOSHA to industry, and that's part of what we're doing today is Coffee with MIOSHAs. We send out the news and the e-news. Hopefully everyone signed up for those. We have Take a Stand Day. If you're not familiar with that, I'll explain it a little bit later, but it's basically where the enforcement people take their hat off for a day and they put on the consultative hat, which is something that CET does every day. Gov Delivery, and we also have Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. Goal 3.1, strengthen confidence in the MIOSHA services. Out of the comment cards that we received, overwhelming majority of them were positive. We do take those negative comments and we typically reach out to the people and try to see what do we do wrong, what can we do better. So please, if you do receive one of those in the mail, please fill it out. They are read. Myself, Tara, and Nikki, they all read them because we want to get better. Respond to on-site complaints within 10 days. So we are legally obligated to do this. And so our average in construction was 5.6 days. General industry was 9 days. And then respond to 100% of fatalities within 1 day. This goal was not met. We did miss 2 of them. And that number there, later on you're going to see some different slides. That number is, sometimes we don't initially know if it's going to be a MIOSHA covered, or sometimes the term is called programmed fatality. And so we still have to initiate it to determine that. Goal 3.4, use information technology to improve services. As everything's changing, as we all know, we all probably 5 years ago didn't think, oh yeah, everyone working from home, yeah, right. Well, look at us now. Promotion of social media, and we're trying to be paperless this year. That's our goal. MIOSHA Training Institute. So we've had getting close to 33,000 attendees, almost 2,000 total graduates. As you can see, there's level 1 and level 2 and an occupational health track as well. So please look into that. These are very good courses that can provide a lot of insight into what MyOSHA does and to understand the program even better. Okay, we do have an alliance with Oakland University that helps out with the EH&S degree. And if I remember correctly, if you go through that program, you can receive up to 11 credit hours towards your bachelor's degree. So what have we done in terms of 2021 activities? So enforcement, we had almost 3,400 on-site inspections. Construction was 52% of those. General industry was 48%. Consultations, state-funded consultants and federal-funded consultations, those are the numbers up there. That is, we'd like to have more on the consultative side. And like I said, that is a free service offered every day. So on that note, though, you can't just call and say, I need someone here tomorrow. You do need to do that in advance. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact CET and schedule that. Okay, so the on-site consultation program, free, voluntary full or partial hazard survey, no fines or penalties. Employer must agree to correct the serious hazards within mutually agreed timeframes. I think that's a pretty fair trade-off. Priority is given to manufacturing and construction employers with less than 250 employees at a site or less than 500 nationwide. Can include free air and noise exposure monitoring. This is something that is not requested enough, especially with some of the silica things that we're still seeing. MyOSHA does operate its own lab as well. It's accredited, so it's a pretty linear progression in terms of the sampling gets done and it goes to the lab, the reports are sent. Please feel free to request the CET on-site consultation hazard survey. Going on our website, you can just Google that and it'll bring you right there. And also, you can apply for the grant, which matches up to $5,000. We're out of money this year, but it's also built into our program for next year. Okay, COVID-19 response. So we took a collaborative approach for this workplace safety. It combined extensive education outreach programs to provide employers the resources they need to understand and implement necessary precautions along with clear and consistent enforcement to keep workers safe. So during this, here's some of the things that we did. Developed a one-stop online resource, created the ambassador program, which consulted over 5,500 establishments, conducted town halls and webinars with employers, workers, and stakeholders, and we launched the hotline. Over 16,000 calls, and the average wait time is less than 20 seconds. So during that ambassador program, you may have seen this sticker around. They went out and went to establishments and did one-on-one guidance. We received a lot of good phone calls from this as well. People say, hey, I just had my ambassador program come through, and now we have this, this, and this. And you could tell they're really honing in on how do they protect not only just their workers, but if they had customers coming into that business as well. So with that, there's 2 different tiers, as you can see on the screen. But overall, we feel that this was a very effective way of handling this. Safety grants. So we launched a safety grant program and offered up to $10,000 in matching, and over 1,500 businesses participated in this. And then there's also, how you can see up here, the state funding involved and how much was invested. So through the pandemic, this has been quite a time for MyOSHA. So as you can see, that top number there, 15,415. Total number of complaints and referrals processed in fiscal years 2015 to 2019 combined. So since March 2020, 16,871, and these numbers are from the end of the year, so I'm assuming they've gone up as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's at 17,000 now. So what did we do with all these? Got to do something with these. We were legally obligated. So out of those, we'll start at the bottom. 543 citations occurred due to that. 1,876 COVID on-site inspections occurred. 3,131 D-letter investigations. If you're not familiar with a D-letter, what happens with that is that a complaint has come in, but for whatever reason, we're going to treat it as what's called an off-site inspection. And that we mail the employer a letter saying, these are the allegations, we need you to respond within 30 days. And then at that point, as long as it's a satisfactory response back to us, we'll then close that complaint. If for whatever reason it's an unsatisfactory response, then it may prompt either an additional phone call to that employer, say, hey, one, we didn't receive anything, or can you explain this further? Or lastly, we could treat it as, okay, we're going to go on-site. 4,387 recommendation letters. So this is where a letter was sent out to the employer informing them of the situation and to take the appropriate corrective actions. Okay, so that's the pyramid that we use, the inverted pyramid. But hopefully that gives some guidance to what all happened with all those complaints that came through. So from the enforcement side, our initial enforcement tool is general duty. Dr. Al-Bayati mentioned that earlier about he did some research into that. I don't know if it was specifically on that. I'm not familiar with that article. I'm going to have to look it up. But then it went into the executive order phase, and then on October 2nd, those were struck down, I think was the legal term. I'm not a lawyer. But MDHHS had public health emergency orders, and then MIOSHA had emergency rules. Federal OSHA, Emergency Temporary Standard, healthcare adopted by MIOSHA, and then it expired December 22nd, 2021. And then there was a Federal OSHA Emergency Temporary Standard for vaccination and testing, and then we will be required to adopt, but has legal challenges. So that has been stopped. Supreme Court ruled on that, and we're not pursuing it any further as well. So that's being taken off the books. And what we're handling it with now is we will, in certain situations, can apply the general duty rule where there's an effective way to protect workers. Okay, so 2020 fatalities. So as you can see, the top leading one was COVID-19. Now these are just reports where there was a link between the employer and the COVID-19. Like I mentioned before, there's programmed and there's not programmed. So if we can make that link that it occurred during a work situation, because the rule indicates that it's work-related. Next, we had 18 struck bys or against, and this is MIOSHA as a whole, not just construction. 9 falls, 6 caught in between, 2 shock and electrocution, 2 of heat stroke, and then 1 bite or sting. 2021, there was 37. 18 struck by, 5 COVID, 5 shock electrocution, 4 caught in between, 4 falls, and 1 burn. So how does that look over time? So like I mentioned before, in 1999, the strategic plan was implemented by MIOSHA, and so that's why this chart starts there as well. So overall, the trend line obviously is going about like this until we get to 2020. So as you can see, 36 of the 74 were due to COVID. Now, none, we're all striving for 0. But if we were without that number, we would still be on that same trajectory. But overall, we're still at a decrease of 14.9%. Okay, Michigan injury and illness rates, BLS data, and I'm going to get into BLS a little bit later as well. So here are the rates for Michigan, and we had a bit of a jump up. Now rates are based on 100,000, 100 full-time workers. So even though sometimes people think, well, there was less workers during certain time periods like 08 and 09 when there was some recession. No, it's still on a rate schedule. So we had an uptick this year, and we don't have the data for 2021 yet. All right, now I'm going to switch over into the construction side, and I'm happy to answer questions on both the agency and the construction side, so don't let that deter you at all. So our organizational chart for the Construction Safety and Health Division, Lawrence Hidalgo is our director, myself and Dan Mackey are the two managers. Supervisors, we have Felix, Jeremy, Tara, and Nikki. Tara's here today, Nikki's here today. Please feel free to ask them questions as well. Anyone who's familiar with Felix, he's retiring at the end of the month. So if you need to make a phone call, give him a call and say, adios. Safety officers. We just had 2 new people graduate from training, and that would be Miguel Alvarado and Ty Steele. So respective to your side of the state, I won't read this whole thing to you, but this is who we have currently. Industrial hygienists, we have 3 of them here in the audience. There they are. Go ahead and embarrass yourself. There you go. Okay. All right, so we have Tashika, Dan, Tashika, Dan, and Joe is here as well. All right, so what do we do in construction? There's a couple slides there that talked about, 52% was done by construction. What does that equate to? This is what it equates to. So 1,790 inspections. Of those, residential inspections were 420. So when we do our paperwork, we go into all different sectors. We have commercial, residential, and industrial. But for residential specifically, we have a code that we put in. So that's what you can see there. Residential would apply to single-family homes and multifamily homes, so apartment complexes, condos, things of that nature. Violations, 3,672. And appeals. So Felix has really been driving the appeals. I'm very fortunate to have him on staff. And 95% of those were settled at first appeal. Next, we have penalty reduction agreements. If you're not familiar with the penalty reduction agreement, that's if you agree to the citations and you just want the monetary side cut in half. We're happy to do that. It can be fully online. You send in your abatement, we review it, we provide it. It's basically an automated system, and then it's done. But you always have appeal rights as well. And in Michigan, we have a 2-stage appeal system. And then the average serious penalty is $1,268. If you're familiar with the national, not their agenda, but the influx, consumer price index, has anyone seen what the new OSHA average is this year? For this, a serious penalty with federal OSHA is $14,500. So Michigan OSHA is still operating on the 7,000 basis. And that's part of the reason why we're so low. And we also take the vantage point that we want to get it fixed. The monetary is second in nature. We just want it fixed so we can move forward and learn from it. All right, so I threw the slide in here. I know this is pretty small, but this comes up quite a bit. So I'm going to go through it. Top 10 serious safety violations, okay? So the first one being no fall protection while performing residential construction. So out of 45, the rule's B13 on that. We obviously need more help in the residential sector with people being exposed to fall hazards as dictated by this being the number one. No hard hats. That's the rules found in Part 6. Ladder not 3 feet above the upper landing surface or secured at the top, which can be found in Part 11. Number 4, no fall protection when employees are exposed to unprotected sides and edges 6 feet or more above a lower level. This one's pretty across the board where we see this. Number 5 and 6 actually go together, but there's a distinctive vertical rule in Part 19 for while operating a power stapler or nailer. So with that, no safety glasses, which most of us would consider pretty common equipment. You show up to the job site too, you wear it all day long. but unfortunately people are still working out there without safety glasses. We unfortunately did have a fatality, I want to say it was 2012 or 2013, not positive, where an employee received a nail in the eye and was killed. So if for whatever reason your company is using these, please remind them that, hey, it does happen. It happened here in Michigan. There's actually quite a bit of NIOSH data and pamphlets on pneumatic tools as well. Next, we have no fall protection while performing roofing work on low slope roofs. Next, we have no fall protection while in an aerial work platform. There's a lot of aerial work platforms out there, so you have to look into exactly what equipment is to be used. There's a couple rules you need to look at. It gets into 2 different figures in the standard, but there's also a rule that talks about working within the manufacturer's instructions. So you need to look at all those rules surrounding it. And then the last 2 were the emergency rules, and like I said, the emergency rules are regarding COVID no longer exist. And that had to do with the self-screening protocol, and then lastly, the development of a COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. So this currently does not, those are no longer on the books. But they made the top 10, and I wanted to keep them in here. Okay, the strategic plan, going back to this. Just as a refresher, I'm not going to read it to you, but we really like having a strategic plan to make sure that we're heading in the right direction, and where can we tweak things along the way. So this is the 1-pager, and I know I went through these earlier, but this is usually the snapshot of kind of what we're doing overall. So this section here is the construction section in terms of reducing the DART rate, which is injury and illnesses, and then reducing the fatalities as well. All these other ones are based more on what can MIOSHA do as well, but these are the real big driving forces of what MIOSHA is doing as well. All right, I'm going to go into some Bureau of Labor statistic data. And with that, is everyone familiar with the Bureau of Labor statistics? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, good. With that, there's 2 sets of numbers that you need to look up, and it's pretty data heavy. There's CFOI, Census of Fatality and Occupational Injury, and then there's also SOII, and I believe it's the Summary of Occupational Injury and Illness. Between those, you can pull a lot of this data. I'm not going to get too heavy into it, but that's where you'll find the data. And it goes back to 2020. Typically around December of each year, they will publish the data for effectively 2 years prior. So U.S. fatalities took a dip last year down to 4,764, which is still staggering. That's a lot of people. And I don't remember this in previous years, but they had a little blurb underneath there, and they said that equates to a worker every 110 minutes, if I remember correctly. It's sad. It really is sad. So, where does construction land? Well, this is not a chart that we want to be leading the pack on. So, construction was the highest, and there was 1,008 fatalities in construction. So of those, so this is calendar year 2021, we had 40 total fatalities, and with that, these are all of MIOSHA. I'm going to get into construction next. I just wanted to use it as comparison. I'm not going to read that to you again. But this is what we had for 2021. 2 falls, 0 caught in or between, crushed by or cave-in. So cave-in, that's where this statistic lands. So we were very fortunate. We have had an emphasis on excavation and trenching for the last 3 years. And with that, that emphasis has helped. We've seen an increase in those inspections slightly in Michigan. From the regional standpoint, we've seen a lot as well. But we had 0 cave-in fatalities. Now that doesn't mean we didn't have injuries or people that were seriously injured, but we didn't have anyone be involved in a fatality. 1 electrocution, 5 struck bys, and 0 other. Other is more of a category for like explosions, chemical releases, things of that nature. So MIOSHA in construction had 8, and comparatively to the 40 overall for the state, but that's still rather lopsided for the amount of construction workers that are in the population of Michigan. So it's still about hovering at about 4 to 5% of the construction industry is the working population. So what is our emphasis for 2022? There's still a national emphasis program for trenching excavation. That's still the agency priority goal. We just had a compliance directive issued from federal OSHA last year, and then Michigan made a similar document with it to go into how are we going to inspect, and that's a public document. It's nothing secret. You can go on our website and find all of our documents under the policy section. There is a national emphasis program in combustible dust. We don't run into a whole lot in construction on a normal basis, but you can run into it, especially if you're in the industrial sector, depending on what type of facility you're in. So if you have a checklist of if you're bidding on projects, and hopefully you're catching it on the bidding side to know what you're dealing with. But if you do have combustible dust, understanding that, hey, this is another hazard that we need to protect our workers against as well. Even if the host employer is the creating contractor involved in that. Hexavalent chromium, really don't run into this a whole lot. You will see this in stainless mainly. You actually can find it also though in some welding rods. So be careful with that. You may have an unknown hazard right in front of you. So reading those SDSs is pretty important. And then lead. A lot of times in construction, the lead and sometimes cadmium as well will be found in bridge alterations where the paint is being disturbed. And any type of paint is a really good idea to verify before you disturb that to ensure that you have a paint chip sample. Also, it's considered objective data in the standard, but then also coupled with air monitoring data for the tasks that you're performing to make sure that you're not releasing it into improper quantities against the PEL. We also have a state emphasis program on respirable crystalline silica. So I forgot to mention before, but when it comes to the top 10 for health citations, 1 through 9 was asbestos related. Number 10, this is the first time I can remember this, number 10 was silica. So we're starting to see an increase in silica violations also. So silica, there's a lot of really good resources out there. The enforcement staff is looking for these types of interactions. Silica is pretty much in almost everything you can run into when it comes to construction. So feel free to ask some of our staff here today. You can always call up as well and ask us questions. And obviously CET, and we have a representative here from CET also that can help you out with either setting up an on-site visit or doing some training or even doing some air sampling. Alliances. So we're always excited for alliances. Here's a list of all the ones that we currently have on the construction side of the house. We have the American Subcontractors Association of Michigan, the ABC and all their different chapters, the AGC, CAM, Great Lakes Safety Training Center, Masonry Institute of Michigan, Michigan Electrical Training Directors Association, Michigan Laborers Training and Apprenticeship Institute, and the Operating Engineers Journeyman Apprenticeship Training Fund, and stationary. Active construction partnerships. So we obviously want more. One of them actually just rounded up within the last couple weeks. So we're looking for more. We have a couple currently in the queue. Hopefully those work out. If anyone's interested in a partnership, please feel free to get a hold of any of the staff, but specifically Dan Mackey or myself. We're working on that together, but Dan is the agency partnership champion. And as I look around the room, actually, there's a few people in here that have had partnerships. Actually, I think I mentioned that earlier, but I want to give a shout out to them as well again. So thank you for your help with that. Okay, March 2nd's coming up. So with that, record keeping is due. So if you're not familiar with kind of how this all started, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a new rule introduced regarding this, and it started with your 300, your 300A, and your 301. It's now been whittled down through legal action that it's just for your 300A data. So this is actually a screenshot from federal OSHA. Michigan OSHA doesn't actually handle this information, and you're going to hit that red button there, and that's where you will upload the data. Now, if you're involved in an inspection, one of the things that may be asked of you is, hey, have you entered your data into the database? And this is what they're talking about. And they say, well, I don't have it available with me, but I'm going to double check it to make sure. Now, there's only been a few citations that have come about due to that, but we do look into that and check for it. Stay connected. The MyOSHA News, available online quarterly, and then the e-news is monthly. The GovDelivery emails are very important as well. They'll give you some reminders, and I have an example coming up momentarily. Sign up on the MyOSHA website. You can choose which kind you would like to receive. We also have a Twitter, Facebook, and a YouTube page. So this one came across, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and hopefully it served as a reminder for a lot of us. It did for me even. Does everyone know that we're in the posting requirement season? That's okay, you don't have to raise your hand. So, but yeah, February 1st through April 30th. So I read this like, oh yeah, we better remind people, and this is good that things like this will go out, and hopefully it does serve as a reminder, because we want people to understand what the rules are, and then obviously to post that as well so employees can see what's going on. I had mentioned earlier about the MyOSHA grants. Unfortunately, we're out of money. I found it, I was like, man, I don't think we've ever ran out of money this fast, and I was right, we didn't. So you may want to set a reminder on your calendar, and for like September, I don't know, 28th or 29th, because October 1st, it restarts. So try to get it in there as soon as possible. And this is dollar for match, up to $5,000 for safety and health related equipment and training. So a lot of people have bought some really good equipment, especially in the construction side. A lot of fall protection equipment and training have been purchased. I can't beat this drum enough. Use consultation, education, and training. They are a great resource. Most of the people are from enforcement previously, so they're very familiar with the enforcement policies and how things will be handled, so it's truly like a mock inspection. But also, the people that haven't been in enforcement, that's fine too, because they're just as knowledgeable. Upcoming events. So, Women in Construction Week is coming up next month, a month from now. Stand Down for Fall Protection, that's May, the first week of May. Trenching Safety Stand Down, that is going to be in June, mid-June. Michigan Safety Conference, I want to thank Dr. Al-Bayati. He's presented at the conference last year, and I believe he's presenting again this year, so thank you. And there's actually a couple people in the room that are on the construction committee also, so thank you for that participation. It's greatly appreciated. And if anyone's interested in joining that, you can talk to me. I'm one of the co-directors for the construction division. Or if you're interested in one of the other divisions, that's fine too. There's plenty of them, and you can volunteer your time for that. Take a Stand Day. I mentioned this earlier. The Take a Stand Day is where the enforcement people, myself included, I've even gone out in the field and handled some of these, go out and we do a mock inspection. And it's basically just warnings, and the only agreement we need is that you're going to take care of the issues. But like I said, CET does that every day. And lastly is the Safe and Sound Week, and that's in August. It typically coincides with the Take a Stand Day, but federal OSHA has not published the date yet. I checked last night actually, because I thought, man, maybe I'm just missing it. No, it hasn't been published yet. But this goes to the extent of that your safety and health program is never complete. It is a living document. It is always being tweaked. And unfortunately, we see some employers will put it on the shelf as a completed project. It's like, nope, comes back down, we revise it, we make it better, we make it better, we make it better. So just making sure there's that awareness with your safety and health program. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if I don't, I'm happy to get you a written response as well.
Can you share with us via email the slideshow that you went through today? Difficult to take notes the whole time, good information. Can you share that with all of us?
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Al-Bayati, if you could send that out to all the people, absolutely. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned before, also, all of our policies are online as well. So feel free to look at them and, just to figure out what we're doing as well. Yeah, it's all public knowledge. Anything else? No? Quiet group?
Do you have any suggestions for employee engagement? I mean, we do safety meetings every day, but, you know, we have a lot of people that have worked for us for decades, and we have that, I've been here for so many years and nothing's happened to me. So, do you have any advice on how to just like engage them to take it more seriously? Because that's something that we struggle with, you know?
Yeah, I worked in the private sector before with health and safety before I came to MIOSHA, and I struggle with the same concept as well. One of the things that I did, not saying that this is a, solution for every situation, but try to incorporate some of those more seasoned employees as well, and say, hey, how about you do the safety topic, and bring up some of the examples that you've learned, things like that. Sometimes they'll reinvigorate some people. Sometimes they're going to be not thrilled at first, but hopefully it'll take legs and they'll start working on that. There's lots of different aspects you can incorporate into to try to spice it up, because you're right, sometimes it can get mundane and you're just going through the motions, but it's really important. Going back to some of the struck by injuries, one of the things that I was asked to look at was what's the commonality between some of these struck bys? And this, I'm going to tie it back to your question. We really couldn't see anything because it was in different sectors, and I looked into the times that it was happening and things like that. And there was actually coffee with MIOSHA. I think it was the first one actually in November, and there was a person that talked about focus, and that all of us, myself included, throughout the day, your focus tends to wane, and we think that that's going to be a lot of it is focus, and then in construction, alarms and noises, things like that, people just get complacent. So in a general sense of just the whole workforce, people do get complacent, like, yeah, nothing's happened, I've been here for so many years, and we have X amount of additive years, and nothing's ever happened. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. Unfortunately, one of the things that we hear on almost every fatality is, we've done it this way a ton of times, or forever. That's typically the term. One thing you could do also is there is a great resource, it's called MyFace, and that's the Michigan Fatality Assessment Control Evaluation. It's actually through Michigan State University, and they do very deep dives into fatalities. And although it's unfortunate, hopefully you could use one of those that fits your situation and say, hey, this is something that happened somewhere, and it could happen here.
Okay.
All right.
What is MIOSHA's viewpoint on the 100-employee COVID restrictions? It's still going by the federal mandate right now, or they could be on the site trying to do evaluations?
No, so currently we have followed the federal system, and the system has been put a stay from the Supreme Court, so we are not taking any action on it. And so we're not going out and enforcing any even promulgated rules. Like, it never came to the, it was only in the proposed stage at that point, and we have not enforced on that, nor do we plan on it, unless something changes. But after the Supreme Court ruled, it's pretty much over. Federal OSHA actually took the steps in the Federal Register to withdraw it as well. Nope. Who was first? Okay.
Questions about occupational exposures, particularly silica, because I noticed that's the full emphasis program. So I think one of the things that I have trouble with employees is relating it to later years, because most of the things are very acute, that they can look at fatalities. So how is OSHA, like, what are you guys doing to make that connection, to help employers make that connection with their employees about, because I know there are university studies and stuff, but let's face it, you know, even for any president, there are university studies that sometimes out there, right? So, but, you know, just if you could talk a little bit about that, just ways you think, or what you guys are thinking, to help us get that message across to our employees, because that is a really hard thing to do in construction, get employees.
Yeah.
We're an engineering firm, so we're actually working with highly educated employees, and they don't like to wear dust masks. Okay, so getting a construction worker who's hot, all of that, is gotta be more difficult.
Yeah, Nikki, I'm going to toss it over to you if you don't mind, but I'm going to tell us something what I used to say in the field as well. So when I would interview employees and kind of talk to an employee and say, hey, you know, what's going on? And it basically boiled down to, I don't like it, type of an answer. And I'd say, you know, even though it may be below the permissible exposure limit, you know, even if you're taking in a little bit every single day, that can accumulate over the course of your whole career. And then you could be in a situation where legally, nothing was technically violated, but you had the chance to be the preventative, and now you're looking for the cure. Sometimes you could see the light bulb come on, sometimes it didn't. So I agree, I've struggled with that same exact question that you're posing. So I wish I had a really good answer.
No, I agree with you, Eric. I think just continual education and reinforcement, and maybe even find some studies of silicosis, or, you know, reiterate that it activates latent TB, tuberculosis. So just continual engagement and education, and getting that employee buy-in, you know, and have them, you know, oftentimes during inspections, we'll ask the employee, well, have you ever heard of silica? Do you know how it can harm you? You know, and get that interactive feedback to make sure they understand the risk. And the shortcuts you take 5 minutes today, not wearing the dust mask, could mean, you know, 15 years from now, you're that guy or girl hospitalized with chronic disease. It's not worth the shortcut. So just keep working on it.
You don't have so when I'm out doing inspections, I run into that quite often. But you know, I've been cutting concrete, you know, for 15 years, breathing stuff, and it's never a big kind of thing. I've noticed this type of things to work with. I like to compare it to cigarettes. Almost no one, especially younger people, don't smoke cigarettes anymore. So you know, everybody knows that, you know, you can smoke one cigarette, you're probably not going to get lung cancer, you're probably not going to die from it, but we all know someone old that basically choked to death in a hospital bed from smoking cigarettes their whole life. So it's pretty similar with silica and asbestos and other respiratory hazards. And that I noticed that generally helps with younger workers.
Thank you for a tag team on that. And Mike?
I have two questions real quick. One, the COVID data that you showed with the inspections, the complaints, things like that. Has that been broken down by industry? Is that construction, general industry? Are there breakdowns of that, what we're seeing?
Yeah, there is breakdowns on the complaints especially. We get an email, I don't know, monthly that breaks it down. In construction is typically about 2% of the complaints that we received. It was very heavily general industry. We were fortunate in that sense of a lot of construction workers outside other than winter. So that did assist in that sense.
And the second question, with the stay from the Supreme Court, is that going to have any effect on inspections for general duty and or recordability of fatalities from someone coming down with COVID?
So we do have the potential to do a general duty, but we're not actively pursuing it. So when a fatality is called in, the employer at that point has made a determination that they do need to call it in, and then we still have to determine that it's work-related. So for all the ones that you see, there's typically 3 or 4 behind it that are determined not to be work-related.
Because I know from many of the groups in here with construction, you know, they live and die by that recordable rate because they come to owners, and that's one of the criteria. And that's, I hear that a lot in the field of, how do we record this? Is this the right thing? This is going to kill us, you know, business-wise. And so there's concern in the field for that.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, I was in the private sector before. I'm very familiar with some of those struggles. So obviously, you have to follow the rules in regards to it. But we're not actually going out like doing COVID inspections. We're just doing regular inspections. Now, if that comes up as a part of an interview, then we can look into it a little bit deeper, but currently there's no rules on the books. So it would have to be something that would rise to a general duty, which would also then have to rise to a serious violation. There's no such thing as a general duty other than serious. So, yep. Oh, hi, Kristen.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Kristen Osterkamp. I work for the Consultation Division. I'm an industrial hygienist, so I just wanted to introduce myself. If there's any questions afterwards about CET and some of the services that Eric mentioned. Also, regarding your question about silica and how to get people excited about, is this going to kill me 15 years from now? A couple of things. One is WorkSafe BC has some nice illustrative videos of showing like a silica particle taking a ride down someone's lungs and what happens, like a visual illustration. Also, you guys might know Tom Ward. He was a Mason for years, and he was instrumental in pushing the silica rules, went down and testified and things of that nature. He's got a video clip that you could play. It's somebody here in Michigan whose father died of silicosis, so some of those testimonials are pretty effective as well. Thirdly, you can get a relationship going with your consultant in your region, and us in the training division can come to your safety meetings and do a talk as well. So just some food for thought on those ideas.
Thank you, Kristen.
Staying on the topic of silica, I was just curious. I noticed that the top 10 doesn't have silica in it at all. So with the emphasis in 2022 being for Michigan, the emphasis being silica, is that emphasis due to is the equipment and technology catching up with the requirements, or are you guys just seeing it in the field more and you're trying to focus? And how many citations are silica related? We haven't really seen too much of that.
Yeah, I apologize for not having that was just the top 10 safety citations. So the health ones, 1 through 9 were asbestos, and then number 10 was the silica one. Okay. So it barely squeaked in, but from the control side, from what I've seen, and I'm not nearly as in tune with it as Nikki or some of the field folks, but the controls are there, either the vacuums or the water suppression, but there's still obviously room for improvement because it obviously made it into the top 10. Speaking of that, even the complaints that we're starting to see that are coming in, they're still pretty, on the health side, they're still pretty heavy on the asbestos side, but we're seeing more and more on the silica side as well. Hopefully that answered your question, and if you need me to follow up with you and get you some data, I'm happy to do that as well.
What is OSHA stands annual recommendations for two-person teams?
Two-person teams in terms of just working together?
Yeah, I mean, you know, so we're a roofing company, but we also provide service for leak calls. So, you know, I find it to be quite challenging here. We've got a great service team. We're going to send out when you call us, tell us you got a leak. But by the way, we're going to put 50 holes in your roof in order to find this leak. So what kind of advice would you have for those types of situations? I find that to be one of the biggest challenges of all.
Yeah, so there's very few standards that require two people to be working together. So roofing is not one of those. So, yeah, and I understand what you mean from the customer side of it. Yeah, they're not going to be happy when you put additional holes in the roof.
Yeah, well, and it's not just one or two, you know what I mean? You
to be able to access the entire parapet if you're, really searching out, a good leak. I mean, we have one customer, we've been looking for 3 years, and it's been an interesting process to try to track it down. But when you gotta consistently move that anchor, you're not talking about one, you're talking about 2 anchors. We don't do lone workers. So I mean, you're easily 60 to 100 holes in somebody's roof.
Okay, yeah, that's,
It's a big challenge, right? I mean, that's not what they expect. They expect us to patch the hole, not implement that many holes.
I wish I had some more words of wisdom for you, but yeah, you're fighting 2 battles there. It's the customer appreciation side, and then obviously the regulation side from OSHA, make sure your employees are safe as well. And it sounds like you're doing pretty good on the OSHA side, and the customer one maybe depends on the situation. So.
Because you'd be amazed how many people that you talk to have no clue about MyOSHA. I mean, have you guys ever considered that, just to the public, to let them know that Michigan has its own safety organization, and they can, take a look at that and maybe help them in their organization? I mean, I can't believe how many people all the time that have nothing to do with my business that I refer to MyOSHA. I'll say, go on their website, see what you guys have. They probably have something for you. I explained the CET division to them. So have you ever thought about that?
We have, and thank you for doing your part in that as well. Actually, Kristen, were you involved with me when we did some PSAs 5 or 6 years ago? I could have swore you were.
Maybe. I mean, I haven't done
Okay.
the recording to promote it, and we're going to try to do more. We're trying to do podcasts and get the word out of our free services. So I hope more to come. I mean, we have an outreach committee, but I've been pushing them to do more YouTube videos and things of that nature.
I was involved 5 or 6 years ago, and we did some radio public service announcements, and they supposedly went on. I actually did hear one of them, but that was the only time I ever heard it. So that's something we can definitely improve upon. So I'm happy to bring that back to Lansing as well. Okay. Anything else? Aaron?
I got one. Are there any look at future technologies, those kind of things? Thank you. We've had drones, we've had self-driving cars and all these things. What's really hitting around the state and around the country is battery plants, and the EVs and high capacity batteries and the inherent hazards that go along with this. And from the construction side, yes, we build, the box that, they're going to, take the battery and put it in the vehicle. But on the GI side and the R&D side, what about when they need to make a faster or more lighter, battery? And there's obviously some hazards. Are we looking at those things? Is there a group that, you know what I'm saying? Is there any futures group that you would know?
Not offhand, no.
Count me in then.
All right. No, I'm happy to take that back to Lansing as well. So we got PSAs, we got future advanced. There were some interesting things that came up right before the pandemic. I don't know if someone has ever seen this, but there's a machine that'll actually build your brick walls. It was really interesting. Never seen it in action, just website. I did hear there was a contractor in Michigan that has one. So, yeah, definitely some different dynamics with that versus people. So. Kristen, are you aware of a future committee?
I'm not aware of that, but I just got a safety magazine that had an article about artificial intelligence being used for scanning, heights, working at heights and things like that, so kind of flag situations that would be posing high risk. So I've seen some movement there, nothing yet in regards to what you're speaking of now.
Yeah, I think that was in the latest professional safety magazine from the American Society of Safety Professionals. Yeah. else? Well, if not, I want to thank Lawrence Tech University and especially Dr. Al-Bayati for letting us be here. And I appreciate all of you coming to promote health and safety in the workplace. Hopefully you found some good information from this. Ahmed's going to be sending out the email that has the slides, so thank you, Vince, for reminding me of that as well. I want to make sure that we're accessible as well, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to take some after. I have my business cards. We have some IOSHA representatives here, so feel free to contact us and ask us questions as well. So thank you, everyone.